I wasn't supposed to be home that day. My original flight out of Seattle had been canceled the night before storm delays or overbooking. I don't remember now, and the airline quietly rebooked me on a red eye. I didn't even bother texting Haley. I thought it'd be a fun surprise, you know? A small, good thing in a week that had been mostly forgettable meetings and lukewarm hotel breakfasts. The rideshare dropped me off just after 8. The sky was that pale, washed-out gray that makes everything feel like it's on mute. I had a paper bag in one hand, still warm pastries from that spot downtown Haley liked, and chocolate croissants for the kids. Something about coming home early with food in hand made me feel like the kind of dad people post about. The one who shows up, who brings smiles. Not just the guy who pays for summer camp and groceries. I pictured Brady's face when he saw me. He's 7 now, all legs and questions. Nora would squeal, and probably knock something over in the process. And little June, she'd just stretch her arms toward me with that gummy grin. She's barely 18 months. The kind of toddler who leaves sticky fingerprints on every surface and then laughs about it. I thought it was going to be a good morning. I really did. But the moment I stepped onto the driveway, I felt that strange wrongness. Like walking into a room that's still warm from a conversation you weren't invited to. Quiet, but too quiet. Then I saw Brady. He was out front. Alone. No shoes, no jacket. Just his pajamas and that faded Marvel hoodie he never wants to take off. He was dragging a stick across the lawn, scratching shapes into the frost-covered grass. Nora sat on the bottom step of the porch, hugging her knees, her wild hair frizzed out like she'd slept on it wet. She was staring at a cracked iPad screen, the light reflecting in her eyes like she wasn't really seeing anything at all. And June was wobbling at the edge of the driveway. No coat, no shoes, her diaper sagging beneath her little onesie, her chubby hands reaching toward something invisible in the cold air. There was no sign of Haley. I dropped the bakery bag right there on the curb. My suitcase rolled off the step and landed on its side. I didn't even notice. My legs were already moving, carrying me across the yard before I could think. Brady, I called. Nora, June, no, come here, baby girl. My voice came out too sharp, edged with panic. Brady looked up like I'd shouted fire. His eyes widened. Dad! He sprinted to me, grabbing my leg, almost tripping me. You're home? Where's your mom? I asked, already reaching for June. Her little face was red with cold, snot dried across her upper lip. She's inside, Brady said. With her friends. Nora looked up. It's loud in there, she mumbled. I don't like loud. I held June against my chest, her head heavy on my shoulder. She smelled like she hadn't been changed in hours. Her hands were sticky. I looked down at my son and daughter and felt something squeeze inside my chest, tight and hot. This wasn't just loud. This was wrong. Stay here, I said. I put June down between them, tugged the sleeves of her onesie over her fingers. Don't move, okay? Right here on the porch. I'm going to check on Mom. Brady nodded. Nora didn't say anything, just held onto June's hand like she'd been doing it all morning. As I turned toward the front door, I heard it for the first time, the music. Loud, thumping bass, bleeding through the windows. Not the usual acoustic playlists Haley played while folding laundry. This was trap. Dirty lyrics. Party beats. The kind of stuff we used to hear through apartment walls in our 20s. I pulled my phone out. My thumb hovered over Haley's name. I could have called. Could have given her a heads up, pretended I was just checking in before I walked inside and saw whatever the hell this was. But I didn't. Maybe part of me already knew. Instead, I opened the emergency dial screen. My hand was shaking. I pressed the numbers slowly. 911. The operator picked up fast. She sounded calm. I did not. My name's Evan Walker, I said. I just got home. My kids 7, 5, and a baby were outside alone. No shoes. It's cold. My wife's inside. I can hear loud music, people I don't recognize. Are they safe now? She asked. They're with me, I said. But I don't know what I'm walking into. She asked for my address. I gave it to her. Told her to please hurry. Officers are on the way. Stay on the line if you can. But I was already slipping the phone into my jacket pocket. The door wasn't even locked. I turned the knob and pushed. The music hit me like a wave bass, laughter, the clink of glass. The smell too. Alcohol, cheap perfume, something burnt. And in that moment, with my kids huddled behind me and my house vibrating with strangers' noise, I knew something had broken. Something that wasn't going to be fixed with apologies or donuts or one more night of pretending everything was fine. I stepped inside. And the world I thought I knew tipped on its side. The first thing I noticed was the sticky crunch under my boots. Something spilled wine, maybe. Or one of those neon-colored seltzers Haley used to drink on weekends. The floor was littered with plastic cups, open bags of chips, the kind of mess you'd expect after a frat party, not a Tuesday morning in a suburban home with 3 kids under 8. I stood in the doorway for a second too long, my body refusing to move even though my mind screamed _do something _. The living room was unrecognizable. Our gray sectional, the one Haley had begged for last Christmas, was buried under bodies. Half a dozen people sprawled out like they'd just wandered in from a music video shoot. Ring lights were set up in the corners, casting 2 bright halos on their sweat-slick skin. One guy sat in front of a laptop, nodding to the beat, while his fingers tapped a vape pen against his knee. My eyes scanned the room, desperate, until they landed on her. Haley was standing on the kitchen island. Not the floor, the island, our island. She was barefoot, wearing a black silk robe that barely covered her. Her hair was down and wild, mascara smudged under her eyes. She had a red Solo cup in one hand and her phone in the other, camera pointed at herself, lips moving with the music like she was in the middle of a live stream. When she saw me, her smile froze. Then the music stopped abrupt, like someone yanked the cord, and the house went silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant wail of a siren. "Evan," she said, blinking like she couldn't tell if I was real. "What are you?" But before she could finish, the police burst through the front door behind me. 2 officers. A man and a woman. Their voices cut through the quiet like a blade. "Police. Everyone stay where you are." The guy who'd been on the couch jumped up and bolted for the back door. He didn't get far. The female officer tackled him into the pantry, shouting commands. The others froze half-dressed, confused, still smelling like last night's booze and bad decisions. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. The officers moved quickly, separating people, checking IDs, securing the house. Haley climbed down from the counter, nearly slipping on a bottle. Her phone was still in her hand, camera still open. She swayed on her feet and turned toward me, eyes wide, makeup smeared. "Evan, wait. I can explain." I stepped back. My hands were shaking. I hadn't even noticed until I looked down and saw them curled into fists at my sides. "You left them outside," I said, voice low but tight. "Brady, Nora, June, no shoes, no coats. Just wandering." "I didn't know," she stammered. "They were watching a movie." I thought her voice broke. "It was just a few friends." "A few friends?" I snapped, gesturing at the disaster. "You turned our house into a content farm. You're half naked on our kitchen counter, and our children were out front like an afterthought." One of the officers stepped between us. "Sir," he said, "can you step outside for a moment while we finish securing the scene?" I nodded, barely hearing him. My legs felt like rubber as I turned and walked back toward the porch. The kids were still sitting there. Brady and Nora side by side. June curled up on Nora's lap, sucking her thumb. When I stepped out, Brady stood up. "Daddy, is Mommy in trouble?" I knelt beside them, wrapping all 3 into a hug. "Mommy made a mistake," I said quietly. "But you're safe now. That's what matters." I stayed there, holding them, until the police came out with Haley in handcuffs. Her head was down. She was crying. She reached for me once, but I stepped away. "Evan, please," she said, mascara streaking her cheeks. "I didn't mean to. Please tell them I'm a good mom." The officers didn't wait. They led her down the steps, read her rights. I stood still, trying not to let the kids see how badly I was shaking. Afterward, the officers asked me a few more questions. How long had I been gone? When did I arrive? What exactly did I see? I gave them the facts, the bare bones. My voice felt like it belonged to someone else. By the time they left, the house was quiet again, just me and the kids and the wreckage of whatever Haley thought she was doing. I didn't have the strength to clean it up that night. I tucked the kids in, one by one. June went down first, her little hand clutching the edge of my shirt until she drifted off. Nora curled into Brady's bed with him, clinging to his arm like he was her anchor. I read them a story with a voice that didn't waver, even as my heart cracked. Then I sat on the couch, surrounded by the echo of music and red cups and everything I couldn't unsee. And I called Naomi. She didn't ask for small talk, just listened as I laid it all out: the kids, the scene, Haley's arrest. When I was done, there was a pause. Then her voice, steady as always. We have a case, Evan. It's solid. I'll file for full custody and emergency protection in the morning. You did the right thing. I didn't respond right away. I just looked around the room, at the pictures still hanging on the wall, the shelf that Nora had painted at summer camp, the couch where June took her first steps. And then I said it. I don't want her near them again. Naomi's voice softened. Then we'll make sure she's not. When I finally hung up, the silence in the house felt different, not just emptiness. It felt like clarity. Like something had ended, and something else was just beginning. It's strange what you start noticing when you're in survival mode. Like how quickly a child's laugh returns when they feel safe. How different a house sounds without someone yelling from the next room. How silence can be a balm instead of a threat. In the days after Haley's arrest, I moved on autopilot. I booked a short-term rental across town, small, clean, furnished enough to not feel like a crash pad. A friend from work connected me with a real estate contact, and within 48 hours, I had keys in hand. I packed what we needed from the house, clothes, toys, photos. I left the rest. The couch she ruined. The robe she wore. All of it. Brady didn't ask too many questions. He just looked at me differently, like he'd grown 2 years in a week. Nora followed him everywhere, clinging to his hand in grocery store lines and at bedtime. June was too young to understand, but she cried more in her sleep, little whimpers that I could feel in my chest before I even heard them. I set up routines, mornings with pancakes, afternoons at the park. I bought a cheap art easel off Facebook Marketplace and let Nora paint in the kitchen while I took conference calls on mute. It wasn't perfect, but it was working. Then the messages started. Haley's number first. I'm so sorry. Please talk to me. I miss them. Each text longer than the last. Voice notes, 2 half crying, half pleading. Her voice sounded like it had been soaked in regret and alcohol, slurring at the edges. Then came the others. Megan, one of her content creator friends. Hey Evan, I think this whole thing's gotten blown out of proportion. Taryn, the blonde with the fake laugh who used to bring Rose to playdates. Haley's not a bad mom. She just had a rough night. Even Mark, the coworker I barely knew, texted me. No one got hurt, man. It was just supposed to be a little fun. I stared at that one the longest. No one got hurt. I thought about June, barefoot on the edge of the driveway. Nora in her tangled hair, silent on the steps. Brady, wide-eyed and confused. I didn't reply to any of them. I just blocked them one by one and tossed my phone onto the couch like it was a lit match. Naomi, true to her word, filed everything. Emergency custody, full divorce proceedings, restraining orders for the time being. The police report helped. So did the body cam footage, the neighbors' statements, the fact that Haley had been visibly intoxicated when she was cuffed. We met in court 2 weeks later. I wore the only suit I owned. She showed up late, looking like she'd slept in her car. Her new lawyer, a public defender this time, tried to argue it was a single lapse, that she'd been under stress, that she was reclaiming her identity. The judge didn't buy it. Neither did I. In the hallway outside, Haley stopped me. She looked tired. Older. Her makeup was smudged, her sweatshirt oversized, her hair pulled back in a way that reminded me of our college years before the kids, before the suburbs, before everything turned into a curated feed. Evan, she said. Just wait a second. I didn't speak. I didn't mean to hurt them, she whispered. I was just trying to feel something again. I was lonely. I felt invisible. I could have said 1,000 things. I could have told her I felt invisible too, on every business trip, on every night she came home 3 hours late. I could have said you don't get to call it loneliness when it's negligence I could have asked her how she justified filming TikToks while our children were unsupervised in the yard. But I didn't say any of that. I just looked at her and said, you don't get to feel sorry now. She didn't follow me out of the building. Naomi filed a motion to make custody permanent after that. Meanwhile, life moved forward. We fell into a rhythm at the rental. Brady started at a new school and came home beaming after soccer trouts. Nora asked for pink sheets for her new bed. I bought them, along with a lava lamp she spotted in the checkout aisle. June learned to say oh and used it every chance she got when she dropped food, knocked over her cup, or saw me staring too long into space. I worked from home, splitting my day between deadlines and dishwashing. It was exhausting, yes, but also simple in a way that made me breathe easier. No more waiting up. No more anxiety watching the clock hit midnight. No more wondering if the woman I married would ever walk back through the door as the person I remembered. She wouldn't. She was gone. I only heard from her once more during that stretch. A call I didn't answer. A voicemail I didn't listen to. Naomi said she was staying on a friend's couch, out of work, out of support, sleep still circling. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need them. One evening, after the kids were asleep, I sat on the rental's worn couch and flipped through old photos on my phone. The ones from before. Brady's first birthday. Nora in her Halloween costume. Haley asleep on the floor with June on her chest, both of them bathed in soft afternoon light. I didn't delete them, not out of nostalgia, just acceptance. That was then. This was now. That night, I tucked my phone into a drawer and took a pen and notebook to the kitchen table. I wrote down everything I wanted from this point forward. Not a 5-year plan. Just a page. One page. Stability. Safety. Butter. No more guessing. No more chaos. No more rescue missions. The next morning, Brady spilled juice all over the floor and Nora cried because June bit her finger. And somehow, even in that mess, I felt grounded. This was my life now. It wasn't curated. It was real. And I was ready to build something that lasted. We moved into the new house on a Saturday in late spring. It sat on a quiet street in a better school district, with a wide backyard and a maple tree big enough for a tire swing. The kind of place that whispered peace instead of begging for control. It wasn't flashy. No open concept kitchen or granite countertops, but it was solid, honest. Ours. I'd sold the old house. The same week the court finalized everything. The divorce. The custody, it was all sealed clean, no appeals, no visitation. Naomi said Haley's lawyer stopped showing up to hearings. Said she was living out of a car at one point. I didn't ask for proof. By then, I didn't need it. The kids took to the new place faster than I expected. Brady raced through the hallway his first night, like he was testing for echoes. Nora picked out a blue nightlight shaped like a whale and named it Walter. June slept better than she had in months, her crib next to the window that caught the morning sun just right. I painted their rooms, hung family photos in the hallway, adopted a mutt from the shelter, a shaggy, lopsided golden retriever mix that Nora insisted on naming Rusty. The three of them fell in love with him instantly. He followed them everywhere, tail like a metronome keeping time. We built routines again, Taco Tuesdays, Friday movie nights with popcorn in mismatched bowls, morning walks before school, evening soccer in the backyard, even when the grass was still wet with dew. I found comfort in the ordinary. In brushing tangles out of Nora's hair while she told me about her dreams, in watching Brady teach June to say words like bubble and ball with exaggerated mouth movements, in chasing Rusty around the porch at dusk while the kids screamed with laughter. It was simple. Beautifully, painfully simple. And it was mine. Every few months, I'd get a text. Never from the same number twice. Hope you're well. Tell the kids I love them. Please, just one photo of June. I never responded. Not out of spite. But because there was nothing left to say. Haley became a shadow, one that grew fainter the more light we filled our days with. Her name didn't come up anymore, except in soft whispers when Brady asked who used to live in the old house. I told him the truth, just not all of it. She made choices. We made different ones. The last time I saw her was in the parking lot of a 24-hour grocery store, about 6 months after the move. I'd run out to grab cereal and milk, wearing a hoodie and mismatched socks. The store's neon lights buzzed in the dark like static. I was halfway to the doors when I saw her, standing under a flickering street lamp at the edge of the lot. She looked thin, worn. Her coat hung off her like she hadn't eaten in days. A plastic bag dangled from her hand, something small inside. Ramen, maybe. Instant coffee. She didn't see me at first. Then she looked up. Our eyes met. We froze. For a second, everything stopped, the hum of lights, the hum of history. She opened her mouth like she might say something. I didn't move. Evan, she said, voice rough. Hi. I nodded, slow. Hi. She took a step forward, then stopped. Her hands trembled. How are they? She asked. They're good, I said, safe, happy. She blinked, eyes watering, and looked down. I missed them. I didn't flinch. Just breathed. You don't get to miss them, I said. You had your chance. She didn't argue, just nodded. I know. She looked like she wanted to say more, but the words didn't come. After a pause, she turned away, her figure shrinking under the streetlight. Take care of them, she said, barely audible. And then she was gone. I didn't look back. Didn't tell Naomi. Didn't write it down. It didn't matter. That was our cleanest goodbye. A few weeks later, I stood in the backyard, watching Brady spray Nora with a water gun while June tried to chase them with Rusty barking at their heels. The sun dipped low in the sky, painting everything gold. The swing creaked gently in the breeze. I took a sip of soda, the fees stinging my tongue, and smiled. Not because it was perfect, but because it was ours. No filtered moments, no fake apologies, no loose threads. Just kids who laughed loud, a dog who dug up my garden, a home that felt real. And me. I. Still standing. Still whole. I never wanted to be a single dad. I never imagined family as something I'd have to rebuild from the ground up. But life doesn't ask for your permission. It asks for your response. And this was mine. I walked inside, water dripping from my jeans, and scooped June up from the grass. She giggled and wrapped her arms around my neck. Daddy, she said. I kissed her damp cheek. Yeah, kiddo, I'm here. Boys.